And we're back with the Triple C podcast. This week, we've got UFC Vegas 27, UFC on ESPN Plus 46, UFC Fight Night 188, Font versus Garbrandt. This one, these bantamweights really are, I mean, other than the lightweight division, I think they're the most interesting division in the UFC. Might get some slander for that, but man, the bantamweight division is stacked. And this Rob Font Cody Garbrandt matchup, I mean, anytime Cody's fighting is must see TV for me. This week we've got an awesome special guest returning, our first ever returning guest, Chuan Yoon at Black Jordan Breen on Twitter. Chuan, welcome back, buddy.
Once again, guys, thanks for having me back. Had a great time doing the previous breakdown with you guys, and you invited me, and I said, anytime you want me on the show, I'll be right here. So as soon as I got the message, I was like, I'm all about it.
Oh, man. Always so happy to have you on. Truly such a great time breaking down fights, and you got such a good eye for the game. And there's a lot of other stuff that you do when people are looking for your content out there, right? Where can we find
I write for MMA ratings. Sometimes I break down fights. Sometimes I have a series of articles where I break down fight scenes from comic book movies or TV shows, live action, and kind of give them the MMA analysis as far as the action, the technique, the style, the tendencies. So I just treat basically a fight scene like it's a real fight. A lot of people seem to like it. I did the Captain America one, Green Arrow, Daredevil. So it's a popular series, and I just it's something I do fairly often. My spare time, if I'm not writing, I also have a book I contributed to, The Fine Art of Violence. I think it's going to be volume 2. Chris Rini, another MMA journalist, he does a series of books, and I wrote a section on Rose Namajunas and kind of focus on Rose's career and her 2 fights against Jessica Andrade. And then when I'm not doing that, I'm talking to various coaches of various ranked fighters and telling them what I see when they're preparing for an opponent. That or amateur boxers. I do a lot of work with amateur boxers too.
That's quite an extensive resume, and it's one of the many reasons why we're very happy to always have you on and appreciate your time.
No, thank you. I thank y'all for the respect and just giving me the opportunity to talk about a sport I'm very invested in.
I think it's one that we are all quite invested in at this point. It's
So thankfully, it looks like we got a really entertaining card here. 13 fights still. Let's hope that they all stay intact and we can get some healthy weight cuts. Don't want to see any incidents on the scales like recent weeks. And let's get right down to breaking it down.
Before we get into this card,
keep breaking it down.
I just want to say, because we were talking about this earlier, because of the pandemic, and everybody thinks about combat sports as being different than NBA or NFL or MLB, when in actuality, they're very similar. They have contracts, and they're contracted for a certain amount of events and fights, which means moving forward, you're probably going to see some guys get matched very tough, and you're going to see a lot of guys you don't know because the UFC has to be on the schedule, which means if somebody pulls out, we don't have time to go get the best option or push this back. We have to fill this in ASAP. So starting from now, you'll start seeing a lot of guys. You're like, who's this? Are they still fighting the UFC? Like, what? Their last fight was in 2017. Why are they fighting now?
Which is actually kind of an interesting point because we actually, unfortunately, have a week off next week with no cards. So a rare week off at the end of May, and we come back at June with Rosenstruck versus Augusta Sakai.
Yeah, that should be a big banger of an event.
It should be a card
that we'll watch. Because Rosenstruck's last one wasn't exciting.
No.
Hopefully he does.
Yeah, I was talking to his coaches. They weren't happy with that either. They're like, dude, this is bad. This is rough. I'm like, I was watching it. I can't imagine what you were saying in the corner when that dude came back.
No, definitely. Rosenstruck's got to just throw some strikes. I mean, he's got to do something. But that's for 2 weeks from now. What do we got? We got 13 fights to break down here.
Yeah, and we should have what looks to be our biggest mismatch to lead off the card. So we have Damir Ismagulov versus Rafael Alves. The line right now, this fight is going to be at 155 after in his first fight, which didn't actually come to fruition. Alves weighed in not only missing the 145 limit, but also the 155 limit. Now, there were some extenuating circumstances. It's very sad to hear about the miscarriage of his wife. So It's completely understandable what happened, and I'm glad that the UFC is giving him another chance. However, we see here that right now Ismagulov is minus 560 with Alves coming back at plus 400. And like Schwan said to lead us off, it looks like there's going to be a lot of squash matches and setup fights here, and this just might be one of them.
Yeah, stylistically, it seems like this isn't going to go in Alves' favor. To be honest, I mean, from what I've seen of him, I don't see a great depth of technical skill. He seems more of a guy who gets by on his physicality, his ability to impose his will and his pace, and that would be fine against your average. If he was getting matched against somebody of a comparable skill level, experience level, I think he'd probably be on his way to his first UFC win. Unfortunately, the guy he's facing is a fairly decorated wrestler, and if nothing else, I don't know how deep his striking skill is, but he's at least a 2-layer striker, which is better than most MMA guys who are like a 1-layer striker. So I don't know that there's going to be much success on the feet. I don't know that he's going to be able to impose his will on the ground, because for you to keep going forward to get those takedowns is one. If you're a much better athlete, much bigger guy, you might be able to force takedowns. When you're kind of around the same size, it's a little bit harder to do so. And I don't know that his striking is good enough to set up any entries for takedowns. So it seems like it's an uphill battle. The only advantage he has is this guy hasn't fought in a very long time. So maybe he's a little bit rusty. Maybe he's not sharp. But if he's well prepared, I don't see how Alves wins this outside of some kind of lucky shot. And I don't think he's that kind of fighter. The guy he's fighting is very safety first, very methodical. So he's not going to offer himself up. You've got to create the opening. And I don't know that Alves is good enough to create an opening.
Yeah, I think Alves has a chance, maybe just in the first round, but that's it. I mean, one thing that I've seen that is kind of glaring on the tape for Alves is that he's got no gas tank. So after round one, I don't see how he even remotely has a chance. With how steep the line is, though, yeah, Ismagulov, his win against Thiago Moises looks unbelievable in hindsight, because Moises went off to rip off 3 wins in a row after that. So now he's fighting Islam Makhachev. So that win has aged really well. Unfortunately, it's taken a long time. That was August 2019.
Yeah.
Yeah, just about 2 years.
That's a long time ago. So, I really want to see how he looks. At minus 600, you have to be legitimately crazy. you just have to not give a fuck. Like, I mean, the line is absurd, and you can't trust Alves at all. I read that article from MMA Fighting. It's actually by Guillermo Cruz, right? Shout out Cruz. MMA Fighting fucked up with that headline, man. That was some fucked up shit. I don't know if anybody saw that. That was really, really just a clickbait headline that didn't even remotely synopsize or capsulate what the article had to say with what Alves was going through, which you alluded to before with his wife, which is really nobody's fucking business.
Unfortunately, in MMA, because it's more of everybody says it's not a niche sport, and I love the sport. But in other sports, NFL, MLB, there's people who are regular people like us who have podcasts who make hundreds, if not thousands of dollars after every game because they have so many resources to draw from as far as fans. MMA is not that way, so they have to put a lot of clickbaity and sideshow stuff in there to get the attention, and hopefully you stick around for the more meat and potatoes. There's a reason why the biggest article I've ever written is an article over comic book characters. Think about that. The biggest article is comic book characters.
You could have literally written the headline as Rafael Alves reveals why he truly missed weight. We'd all click on that. That's it. You don't have to the headline was just disgusting. Anyway, the fight line is absurd. I think Ismagulov should be able to get it done. Unfortunately for Alves, I'll personally be rooting for him. I'm not sure that I'll be picking him, and I certainly won't be placing any money on him.
That's like the vote of confidence from the owner. The coach has got our vote of confidence. Okay,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that guy's not lasting long. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's got to be Ismagulov, but at that price, there's no way. I don't even want to look for a prop on this fight because I could see a finish or a decision. I don't really think you're making money betting either.
Yeah, Schwan, you see any type of way that they finish the fight or how it goes?
Well, like you said, the first round probably be the best option for Alves. Unfortunately, the fact is, if he messes up or over pursues, he gets taken down and then he gets grinded on for the rest of the 5 minutes. Which if he gasses, I can see him just giving something up. I mean, a lot of fighters say, "I'm not going to quit," but we all know they get tired and they stop swinging back. They don't fight that arm around the neck quite as hard. They don't try to yank out that arm bar quite as quick because they're just tired. So I can see exhaustion being the setup for it. But that guy's so safety first. I can't imagine he's even going to take that chance. He might just be like, you know what? If I lose this guy, this is a huge step back for me. I cannot afford to lose this fight. I'm not taking any chances. The only way he's going for a finish is if he thinks it is clearly and safely there. And I don't think he's going to take a chance. Alves is a kind of big spot offense. So from round 1 to round 3, he's going to try something crazy, and you want to avoid that at all costs. So I don't think a finish is very likely.
Yeah. So I guess sounds like we're all kind of in agreement on this fight, so we might as well get moving on to the next one.
Definitely.
And like Schwan was kind of alluding to here, is Yancy Medeiros fighting out his UFC contract, and here he comes in against Damir Hadzovic, who, last fight against Renato Moicano, really just a horrible performance. And, if Moicano really did want to fight longer, he should have not submitted him, right? That's it.
That was one of the funniest moments. That really is so funny. Between them at post fight.
Yeah, it was weird watching it. I was like, what is he doing? Like, it just was ridiculous. It was really my concern for this is it's like I said before, I think we're starting to see that contractual obligation fights we're getting now, where somebody fights and they win or lose, and all of a sudden they're either retiring or getting cut or whatever is going on. I feel like Medeiros is right on that. He was a guy who he's never really been an elite fighter. He put some fight wins together, but he's always been more of an like in boxing, he'd be a TV fighter. Always a good fight, always back and forth. Yeah, he's
exciting. Yeah, very exciting.
He's limited and fundamentally flawed in that he can do enough that if you engage him, it's exciting. But if you fight smart, he's literally got nothing for you. I mean,
he uses his face to block punches. It's not a nice strategy.
He's like the poor man's, like the very poor man's version of Max Holloway. A lot of the volume, but he's got none of the defense, none of the craft, none of the setups, none of the exits, none of the entries. It's just aggression, toughness, and volume. And that works against a certain caliber of opponent. But once you get past that, he doesn't have any way to build on his offense. He doesn't really have a jab. He throws things ones at a time, and the only way he builds on it is if you basically back up to the fence or you just start swinging back. Otherwise, he doesn't have any way to set anything up. Not takedown defense, not takedowns, not a jab, not a right hand, nothing. It's just real basic striking based on his ability to be aggressive and be durable. He's not as durable as he used to be. He was never fast, and he's probably 2 steps slower now. And the worst part is now he's trying to be technical in that defensive way, but he can't take punishment anymore. But his whole offense has been built on him applying pressure. So now he's just really limited offensively as well. In other case, I really don't think his opponent's that much better than him. If we're really talking about it, he's another guy who I think is at best maybe a middling fighter. But I feel like Medeiros has declined so much physically, and he's just like so exhausted, and he's just so limited in his skill set. It'd be impossible for me to see a way that he wins. How do you say it? Hadzovic doesn't have great takedown defense, but neither does Yancy Medeiros. Hadzovic actually has some durability left. He's still pretty fresh as a fighter. He's fairly platonic in his skill set, but he doesn't have the miles on him. He doesn't get rocked by every shot, and at least he seems to have the willingness to engage. I don't know that Medeiros really has the willingness to engage in any sort of tough fight anymore. Like if he gets a leg up, he might go for it, but otherwise he seemed a little gun-shy to me in his last couple fights. And with his limitations, I don't think he can win this. I don't really think he should continue fighting, because that kind of fighter, you need everything and you put everything in the cage to win. And I don't think he's willing to make that investment anymore.
Well, when you've seen since his Donald Cerrone fight, which is one of my favorite fights, because I mean it was Donald Cerrone at his absolute very best, right after he had a kid, and he looked incredible against Yancy Medeiros, and Medeiros didn't look excellent, and then he comes out and gets oh my god, why did they give him Gregor Gillespie? That's so mean. And he lands 1 strike against Gregor Gillespie. It's not even a fight. He gives up 6 takedowns. And then Lando Venata, he gets outstruck for pretty much He gets outstruck obviously for the whole fight. His accuracy goes down significantly round by round.
That's where my concern came in. I don't know about you, but Lando Venata is the guy who nobody's ever had a hard time hitting. Yancy Medeiros couldn't lay a glove on him. I mean, Lando Venata, everybody
You're
hits
right.
him. Everybody hits him. And Medeiros could barely touch him. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God, he's making him look like Pernell Whitaker out there.
Yeah, and for all of his reach advantage in this fight, I mean, how much is Medeiros really going to be able to use it? I don't think much.
But listen, I honestly, and I'll be honest, I didn't see Hadzovic fight Christos Gagos. I haven't rewatched that fight anyway. So I don't really know how that fight went, but Christos he had a good fight recently, but right, he had a big battling back to get back to the UFC and stuff like that. So I don't know that that's that impressive that he loses by unanimous decision there. And then his knockout win against Polo Reyes, we know that guy sucks. He's not part of the UFC anymore. And Nick Hine, a split decision win. I don't know that he's actually any good either. So I kind of go back and forth with the line. Part of me in the beginning wanted to play Yancy at the dog price, thinking that he might save his career. But after chopping it up with you guys, it's certainly a pass. But I'm not even sure if I could say dog or pass. It might just be pass.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think I'm going to be betting this fight. Medeiros plus 105, and it keeps on moving him closer to the favorite. Hadzovic minus 129, and I really think Hadzovic. If I could trust his grappling to hold up, if I could trust him to go out there with some volume, it just makes me a little nervous to put money on Damir Hadzovic. I think is really what it comes down to. Although he really should have his way here.
I think the weird thing, it's like, and people always say you repeat the same talking points when you talk about fighters, but because it's the same problems with fighters. Medeiros, like a Tony Ferguson, like a Randa Marcos, like a Juan Archuleta, his whole style is based on his ability to take punishment and apply punishment at high pace, high volume, high activity. Once that slips, they're no longer effective. And the whole basis of their skill development is based on the fact that I can be tougher, I can force the pace, I can say in extended exchanges. So you take that crutch away, and now they're trying to do things late in the game like establish a jab, be on their toes, slip and counter. That stuff you don't pick up. That stuff's all timing. That's all feel. That's all second nature. You don't pick that up in 6 months. You don't pick that up unless you're a spectacular athlete and a certain caliber fighter. You don't pick that up in 6 months. You don't pick it up in 8 months. You don't pick it up a year and a half. It takes time. And it takes time against ascending levels of fighter for you to develop it. Jose Aldo wasn't untouchable at the beginning of his career. He kept working, and he eventually became untouchable. Lyoto Machida wasn't untouchable early in his career. BJ Penn was touching him up. And then you get to the UFC, and nobody can lay a glove on him. It takes time to make those adjustments. And Yancy Medeiros doesn't seem like a fighter to me who's made those adjustments throughout his career. Technically, he doesn't seem any better than he was the first time he came in. Now, if this was Yancy Medeiros from 2 years ago, even 3 years ago, I see a clear path to win. I just don't know that he's willing to pay the price to put the volume and the aggression on to beat Damir. I don't know if Damir's that good either. He's topped off against a certain caliber of fighter. The thing is, the guys he's topped out against, at this point, I have to say are better than Medeiros, because Medeiros hasn't had a meaningful win in 2-3 years. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, exactly what you're saying. You have to not, at least what I gathered from it, you not only have to be a good hammer, but you have to be a good nail. And a lot of these times, these fighters don't drill those positions, don't get comfortable being uncomfortable. And like you're saying, that their skill set doesn't evolve, and there's
a reason why Jose Aldo is 2 steps slower than he used to be, and he's still giving world-class guys fits. He gave Jan a better fight than Sterling because he has a better skill set. It's all skills. He's not as fast as he used to be. He doesn't hit as hard, but he's still skilled.
That's true.
Medeiros isn't that guy. No offense.
No, yeah. I'm gonna save my dog play for somewhere else. We're gonna keep looking. Yeah. It's not here.
And hey,
funny.
So now we move on to a fight where I'll be honest. As much as I was excited about Joshua Coulibaly making his debut and possibly trying to fade Mr. Turner, that didn't work out so well. Coulibaly finally moved back down weight after making a short notice debut, up weight. Now he's facing Xia Yilan, and there's not too much
You
accessible
faded
tape
Turner
out
in
there.
that fight? Why did you fade Turner in that fight?
I don't know, because I'm stupid. Come on, I was still
Oh my
learning.
God!
So
I love Jalen Turner, the
no,
Tarantula,
of
right?
course, yeah. I mean,
He's a
but
fighter. Yeah, he's
listen,
the
come on.
boy.
I mean, a couple years ago, okay, not a couple years ago, but a year ago, not really doing as much research, going, oh, Jalen Turner, like, what's so special? I could fade him, and once again, that didn't work out so well. But
I could fight him. I could take him.
But Coulibaly, he really showed off what he had against Charles Jourdain. He really proved that he could go out there, win a couple rounds, but the gas tank seemed to fade a little. Seemed to really feel the pressure in the moment and gave up a really bad third round performance. Now, Xia Yilan, I really don't know what he brings to the table. I'm not rushing to bet Coulibaly minus 250.
Yeah, he lost by a round one knockout to Rong Zhu, who looked like a fish out of water in his debut just a couple weeks ago when China went 0-4. And what's so weird about this is, okay, yeah, Coulibaly did look decent against Jourdain, and he pulled out a split decision, a split draw. But now all of a sudden he's a minus 255. Maybe that line was just a little too steep with Jourdain. I don't see that now he deserves to be such a heavy favorite. So once again, this fight's like a pass. I'll probably lean Coulibaly. Coulibaly by decision plus 125.
These type of matchups they're giving us, you just don't have enough information. You want to at least have a couple fights, figure out patterns, see where they stand at athletically, and you're getting guys who you have nothing on. So you have to favor the guy who's got the experience, because you figure at least he's shown he can compete at a certain level. We don't know about the other guy, which is basically my statement. One guy's at least shown that he can work out of bad spots against a high caliber of opponent. Another guy's lost to every higher level opponent he's faced on the regional level. So who am I going to favor? The guy who's at least been able to hang at the UFC level. I have to. I don't have any other reason to argue on behalf of the other guy. Even if the other guy is a dynamic athlete or a finisher, I at least know that he's had the heart to be dead tired, to be taking punishment, and to keep fighting to survive and to make it through a round. When he's dead tired, he has nothing left. I don't know that about the other guy. I don't know that he doesn't fold when it gets tough. I know Coulibaly will not. You'll probably have to finish him, and that's not very likely, because if Coulibaly got frustrated and overwhelmed by the moment, and he's 2 fights in, what do you think the guy making his debut is going to be in?
Yeah, completely agree. One that I'm not looking to touch. Seems like they probably have it priced right, but this is a sit back and learn fight. Let's learn about their tendencies and see how it goes. And what a better way to transition to our next fight, right?
Another fight where you have Bruno Silva at minus 350 and Victor Rodriguez at plus 280. And Victor Rodriguez in his debut against Adrian Yanez, you don't have a tougher, more terrible outing than that fight. So I don't think it's going to get that much worse for him in his second fight here. So he's going to look better than that. That I will come to expect. And like Schwan was just saying, other than that, fighting at Alaska FC and blood, sweat, and beers promotion, I mean, we have nothing on him. And Bruno Silva, who we both picked against JP Buys, that was a great call by us. I believe he got his new contract. This is a winnable fight for him. I'd like to see him win it. He's a relatively middling fighter, in my opinion, but not worth this crazy number here.
Yeah, see, I feel a little bit stronger on this fight at least than the last one. I feel like at least I have a little UFC tape on both sides.
Yeah,
and Bruno Silva has proven to get in bad situations and then get back out of them. His debut against Khalid Taha, he lost by submission, but it got changed to a no contest due to a drug suspension. Then Dvorak, I mean, we're going to talk about him later on the card, so I'll just, we'll wait on that. But Ulanbekov, that's another tough one. And then finally he gets, a young opponent like a JP Buys. He's much better than Victor Rodriguez from what we saw on tape. And Victor Rodriguez, let's be serious here. I mean, he got called up on a short notice, right, against Yanez in the prime of the pandemic. This guy's fighting out his UFC contract. Bruno Silva, I've seen him fight tough guys. I know he fights out of a gym where Cejudo has been putting in work with him, Fight Ready MMA. Bruno Silva has finished fights in every which way. I think Bruno Silva is going to be a parlay piece for me with someone else down the card.
Yeah. My thing with Victor Rodriguez, from what I've seen of him, I know he's very tough. I know he's very game. In another sport, you'd say he's a dog. He's a grinder. I just don't know that he's very good. And at a certain level, it's at a certain level, like grit and IQ. And I don't even know that he's high IQ. I know he's tough. I know he's willing. I know he's willing to engage. I know he won't give up. But at a certain level, that has a hard ceiling on it. And I think Silva is also a tough, gritty guy, because the losses he's had have been to athletically superior opponents. So he's had to fight uphill battles. But like you said, he's been able to survive in bad spots. He's been able to work himself out of bad spots. He's even eked out a couple wins over guys who were slightly better than him. So we know that A, mentally he's tough. B, his cardio may be not the best, but it holds up. And C, he obviously has a skill set, because when you're at a physical disadvantage, every technique they do is 100% more effective than yours, because there's such a gap between athleticism. You can't make up that gap. You have to have skill and awareness. So we know that he has those things. I don't know that Victor Rodriguez has them. I know that he'll come out swinging hard. I know he'll take a fairly good shot. I know he won't give up unless into the last moment. But that's all I know about him. And if the only thing I know about you is that you're tough and in shape, I don't know very much about you, and I can't bet on you.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. If I was gonna have to choose a prop to play for this fight, I'd probably look, maybe Silva inside the distance, but by submission plus 500. What I noticed about Rodriguez when I was scouting him for the Yanez fight is that he leaves his neck in really bad spots on takedown attempts, and I think he's going to get touched up a little here before he would go to shoot for a takedown. So at plus 500, I mean, you could just go inside the distance, but that's not as attractive a price here.
At minus 135, it's not as attractive.
Yeah, so I mean, a plus 500 for submission, and then I'm going to play him in a parlay. So just put a little tasty something out there on the prop, and then really hammer it home on a parlay.
Yeah, one thing people want to pay attention to when they're picking on fights like this, it's just a minor detail. Like, everybody will hear a guy's tough, he's really gritty, so that means he's hard to finish. In a sense, that means it's hard to finish if you're a certain skill set. Tough and gritty guys who stay in your face, they keep giving you multiple opportunities to finish them, because they don't know, they can't go backwards. They don't have counters. Their only answer is to go harder. So if they don't have a certain durability, which I don't think Victor Rodriguez has, or they don't have a certain athleticism, they're just going to keep serving themselves up, because they don't have anything else to lean on. They're going to keep on going for takedowns. They're going to keep on striking with you. They're going to keep on pushing a pace on you, because what else are they going to do? They back up. They know they're dead. At least they can actively take some control by trying to engage on you and force a pace on you. So they don't really have anything excuse me, I can't talk. And when you get to a certain level, those kind of guys are actually easier to stop, because they keep putting themselves in the danger zone, and you can only work your way out of it so many times.
Danger zone.
Danger zone. But yeah, I completely agree, man. Completely agree. Guru, do you have any final thoughts on this one?
You've kind of sold me into that. I should be a little bit more confident in Bruno Silva's ability to probably win the fight, just maybe in terms of parlaying him to one other fighter, in terms of a smart parlay. If we could even call it that. But yeah, no, I do feel right in not feeling extremely confident, because there's really not that much to feel extremely confident about. I mean, if Victor, right, because we said that we could even expect, I don't even know that you could expect Victor Rodriguez to just like keel over and get knocked out, or just get submitted. Like, he could put on like the best performance of his career all of a sudden. We really don't know that much about him. So he could totally rise to the occasion. But I don't think he will, but that we've seen crazier things happen.
I can see him rising as far as his will and catching somebody early or fighting through spots. But when we talk about rise to the occasion, and I'm talking purely skill, that does not get made up in 6 months. That does not get made up in a year. Not against a guy who's got that much more experience than you, that much more skill than you. That's all I'm talking about. He might have the will to win, But once again, like Floyd Mayweather says, lots of guys have the will to win. They don't have the skill to win. And that's where you have the separation. And one more thing, for guys like you who do this sort of thing where it's kind of the betting lines, I feel bad for y'all with cards like this because regardless of who wins, it's not going to tell you much of anything. So next time this guy fights, you aren't going to know anything.
You're right. You want to sit back and learn something about these fights, but we're probably going to have to wait for them to make a couple more appearances. And this is what we do. We keep on learning. We keep talking about them, and we hope that they show some tendencies for us to pick up on.
Yeah, and we always like to have Schwan on to help us really put our thoughts together because sometimes they're over here and sometimes they're over there. So you really help us kind of string them together.
Y'all make good points. Like I said, I've talked to coaches I've literally worked with MMA coaches who are getting paid a salary, who cannot break tape down and who break tape down worse than y'all do. And I don't mean that y'all are bad. I mean, like, they're getting paid to do this and they're terrible. They're terrible. They're like, how did you know that guy's good with a jab? Have you watched the fight? Like, what are you talking about? I don't think his jab's a problem, really. Okay, well. I get that text the next Sunday morning. Man, we couldn't get past his jab. Oh, really, you say? Doctor said his jab wasn't a problem.
So talk about this fight. This fight, we have nothing but experience between these two guys, yet they're still so fucking unpredictable and ridiculous. We have no idea how this fight's going to play out. As I'm looking at it right now, Claudia Silva, Court McGee is even money, -108 on FanDuel.
Stay away.
All right, so call me crazy. I like Court McGee by decision here.
Damn it, I was thinking the same thing.
I'm not sure that I would feel comfortable like laying my house on it, but what I've seen from Claudio is that he's just so sloppy, and I just what's his path to victory is going to be a submission, and I don't think that
his career.
And then exactly, Court McGee has been good at defending submissions his entire career. Even if maybe in the first round, right, Claudio Silva keeps top pressure on him, like how long can Claudio Silva do that? We've seen that his cardio is awful.
Yeah, Silva's he's really like, his grappling it's very layered and very nuanced, but his wrestling and his striking is very platonic. It's like very surface level. He throws one strike at a time, maybe two at the most, but it's very robotic. You watch his fights, you can almost tell, oh, there's the kick. Oh, he's going to throw the right hand. He doesn't have he's another guy. He doesn't build off his offense. It's all like lead rights and these kicks and like a 1-2. It's all real basic, and he fights in spots. And a lot of it is previously he was a better athlete than most guys. Even though he doesn't look like he's in the best shape, he's actually a pretty good athlete. But the worst part is he can't fight at pace. Even against Leon Edwards, where he was dominating for large moments of time, having him down, third round, he's dead tired. He's off balance. He's stumbling and swinging and missing, and his volume is going down. And I'm like, how did you throw like 15 strikes in the first round, and now you're down to 4 in the second? Like, how's that happening? He doesn't have very good conditioning. Court McGee is actually the more accomplished fighter. He's the better conditioned fighter, and he's got the broader skill set. I would almost say that I think Court McGee might be able to stop him, because Court McGee, he always fights at pace. I've never really seen him fight at a slow pace, even at this older age. He still scrambles. He still throws a pretty high volume. He still takes a pretty good shot. And even though guys will attempt takedowns, he's good at scrambling, get back up. He's fairly good at defending them, and he doesn't seem to get tired doing it. I see Claudio trying to go out early and establish himself and put a pace and finish. And if he doesn't finish McGee in the first round, I fully expect him to gas really badly and McGee to put it on.
Schwan, do you know the last time Court McGee got a finish? If you can tell me who it was, his last finish was against offhand, I don't know, I'll buy you a beer or something. I mean, I should probably buy you one anyway.
Oh, man. I'm trying to think right off the top of my head.
If you get it.
Was it Robert? It was Robert Whitaker, was it? Okay.
No.
I remember them fighting in welterweight. For some reason,
he won a split decision. A fella by the name of Ryan Jensen.
Who the hell is that? Who is this?
A triangle choke in round 3. UFC 121, Lesnar versus Velasquez. That was his last finish.
Yeah, it's crazy, but I just know he still fights at a pace, and if he can just not get caught early, I have no faith in Silva. He's either dominating and winning, or he's just getting handled. And I I just feel like his skill set's so limited. And Court McGee, if nothing else, he's always well prepared. He always fights very hard, and he never shortcuts anything. So I feel like Silva, to me, Silva takes short.
Except his game planning when fighting
That is true.
Carlos Condit.
That was very
Yeah, but you know what? I got to say, looking at the statistics, Court McGee, he hasn't gone below 50 significant strikes landed since 2016 against Dominique Steele, but he lands 84 strikes. He lands 107 strikes. He lands 65.
He still has cardio. And you know what? That loss to Sean Brady, I bet Sean Brady, I wasn't his biggest scouter at the time. It was a few years ago. I really liked Sean Brady, what I saw of him. I bet Sean Brady there, and that first round, Sean Brady lost that first round. So I was really freaking nervous watching that. I'm like, I can't believe this. And then Sean Brady came back to absolutely smoke him the next two. But the fact that he could even still do that at this pace, at this age, and that Sean Brady is now a ranked fighter and only has big things ahead of him.
Yeah, maybe I'm just underestimating Silva. When I see him fight, I just see a guy who, even when he dominates, looks very tired and doesn't seem to build on any offense he has. But luckily, he's been facing guys who kind of are maybe a little bit more one-dimensional, or who are giving him the opportunities he needs to win fights. I just something in the way he fights, like you said, seems very sloppy, seems offensively unaware, and he just doesn't seem to have any rhyme or reason to how he fights outside of his grappling. So what happens if he can't? I think Court McGee can put pressure on him. I think Court McGee could actually stand that range and box him. I think Court McGee actually could stand on his toes and outbox him too. I think Court McGee has the cardio and the experience to do a couple different things if he wants to. He just got to make it through the first 45 seconds of that fight without.
Court McGee has a career 63% takedown defense.
Yeah, but Claudio Silva has a 28% takedown accuracy. I mean, he lucks into his takedowns for the most part. And when you look at Court McGee having a 4-inch reach advantage, and also Court McGee, Claudio Silva only has 43% striking defense. That's horrible. His opponents are landing at 57%. And I mean, listen, I think
Court McGee's landing nearly 2 strikes more per minute. Honestly, I don't know why the line is this close. It just shouldn't be.
Wow, why did I say stay away before? I think we got to be on Court McGee straight up.
Because would you be so surprised that if within 2 minutes of the first round, Silva gets the submission? Like, no.
Okay, yeah.
That's me surprised.
So
it's because it's a stay away instinctual, because we've learned that with fighters that we are not high level, that we are not confident that they will stick to a game plan. You cannot bet your hard-earned money on it. It just doesn't make sense. So we are angling more towards, not that we actually can depend on Court McGee, more that we can depend on Silva. I mean, on Silva to not perform well. That's really more of what we're betting. We're betting the opposite.
No, I respect that. And like I said, you look at his record, he is athletic. He's still probably a better athlete than McGee. He's obviously a better grappler and better finisher. It's just with the style he has, there's just so many holes you can be filled. And I really think that Court McGee's volume and his experience will be enough. I mean, he's as good as some guy. He's not a good takedown guy. He's not really a great offensive striker. Like you said, he's not a very good defensive striker. It's literally, if he doesn't get that takedown and finish, he doesn't really have much else. So it's like I just see so many avenues for Court McGee to find a way to beat him. And I still think he can stop him. I think as long as he makes it through that first 30 seconds or so, I fully believe that Court McGee can create a position where he runs him into something or just overwhelms him physically. Maybe the guy goes for takedown, he defends it and just opens up on him. Because Silva gets real sloppy late on those takedowns. He gets real sloppy.
My phone might be listening to me or something, because now FanDuel's line has changed from Court McGee minus 110 to Silva minus 106 since we've been sitting here. So they must be listening to us. We've swung the line 2 points. Court McGee, man, I like it. Court McGee by decision plus 190. That's so crazy to me. How about the fight just to go the distance at minus 136?
Trusting a bad gas tank and some sloppiness, but Silva does go the distance often.
But
In
who's he going the
fact,
distance
in
again?
his UFC career.
And again,
Yeah,
Condit doesn't. I mean, Condit. McGee doesn't get finishes either.
I,
Like again, his last finish was 10 years ago.
expect the
Yeah,
unexpected.
I'll admit I'm reaching on that one. It's just when I see the gas tank, I see the sloppiness. Most guys don't work at the pace McGee does. They're not willing to open up like McGee is. And I feel like if some guys would have pushed the gas to the pedal a little bit more and taken more chances, they could have gotten Silva out of there. McGee has nothing to lose. He might win and still get cut. So there's no reason for him to hold anything back.
Actually, it's funny that you say that because I was thinking the opposite. I think that Court McGee has a very, very good relationship with Dana White. I think that they're really close. I think Dana really likes him for whatever reason, and I think that they gave him this matchup as a really winnable matchup.
I can see that, but I don't know the history of Dana White likes is not very good.
Listen, at the end of the day, he loses a fourth fight in a row. Dana's hands might be tied. So
he needs this win. He needs it more than Silva needs it.
You would expect to see that in the octagon come Saturday. And if you don't, you don't see that intensity of weigh-ins. He doesn't look good, right? It's a full fade or a full pass then. So
yeah, I wouldn't bet heavy on this fight, but it seems like we all agree on the
I
side.
wouldn't bet heavy on this card.
No, this is not.
We got a huge summer full of stuff to bet.
Yeah, I agree with that. But will I still bet? Hell
Absolutely.
Yeah. Follow at your own risk. So on to our next fight here. We got
Jesus, this fight. The people's main event.
Ben Rothwell versus Chris Barnett. Yes, the people's main event. What is it? The mayor of Kenosha or whatever we're calling Ben Rothwell these days. I mean, this guy's now fighting out of Rothwell MMA, so this is his own gym. You don't know how hard he's being pushed in the gym these days. Rothwell's someone that, willing to go the distance, definitely willing to make it ugly. But talk about ugly. I mean, you look at the body on Chris Barnett, you might be surprised at how athletic he is. He's pretty impressive when you see the type of movements he can make. His dancing after the fight, you're like, oh, okay, this guy could move a little bit better. Now, when he comes in, he is going to be giving up 7 inches of height and 4.5 inches of reach. So he's going to be fighting an uphill battle, at least physically. And we've seen Rothwell use his size to an advantage in the past, but Barnett he is going to have a significant athletic advantage here. He has a win over Walt Harris all the way back in 2011, which I found pretty funny. But then he does have a first-round knockout loss to Alex Nicholson in 2017.
How about a grappling bout loss to Yoel Romero?
Yeah.
Yes, that was very funny to watch.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, this should be a little bit of a slap fest, but I'm looking forward to it.
It's interesting because he looks like a heavier guy, but, like Roy, he's probably looks kind of similar build to Roy Nelson, except he's very light on his feet. He's very athletic in spots. He does some dynamic kicking. It's not particularly technical, but just the fact that somebody his size is pulling that off, and some of the shots he takes and takedowns he gets, there's a high level of athleticism, reaction, balance, timing. But it's going to be really hard to navigate. It's weird because they both have opposite problems. Rothwell is long, and he's been known to use front kicks, long reach. Even his defense is he has his arms out, so you got to get through his arms and his hands to get to him. So you got that length that Chris Barnett's got to navigate to get to the body, get to the legs, get the takedowns to land anything. But on the same instance, Rothwell's routinely had issues with guys who can fight at pace and guys who are mobile. I mean, Junior Dos Santos beat him with a jab and some active footwork. That's all he did. He jabbed him, high jab, body jab, moved around. High jab, body jab, moved around. And even Marcin Tybura, he basically just outquicked him, moved around, picked him off, threw a lot of strikes, threw a consistent jab, and out-hustled him. So you see the framework for that type of fighter is there, but unfortunately on the other side of it, Barnett doesn't have those length and doesn't have that size. So it's going to be a lot harder for him to establish a jab, to work long-range weapons. And even if he fights in big spots where he has those big explosive moments of leaping forward with punches and kicks, it's still hard to get through Rothwell's arms, and it's still hard to get to him to a point where you can really put something on him. So my biggest thing is I don't think Rothwell is the guy he used to be. I still think he's pretty durable. I still think he's good at the skills he has, but like you said, who's pushing him? Who's he bringing in for sparring? Is it at the point where he's still hungry because he's nowhere near a title fight. Nobody even talks about Rothwell as a heavyweight anymore. I think Barnett has a good chance of pulling an upset off of this. If he gets in, lands a couple big shots, I think he can really turn the fight around. I don't think Rothwell is the kind of guy who turns fights around anymore, and he hasn't looked great. He didn't look great against OSP. He didn't look great against Tybura, and I think he's kind of lost a step.
Well, he's a guy that hasn't looked good since he's come back from his USADA suspension.
That is fair.
So,
you make a very salient point there, Guru.
Chris Barnett, he's 5'9". He's 5'9". And that length, that reach advantage is going to be a problem. And you saw OSP, who's not even necessarily, like you said, he didn't look good in that fight. But OSP's at least a decent fighter who just decided not to weight cut and try it at heavyweight, and they didn't like that. So like, okay, here you go. Here's the biggest heavyweight that we have. This is a short notice fight, very short notice for Barnett. Other than a flash knockout in the first round, similar to McGee, he hasn't been finished in a long time. Last time he was finished was by Gabriel Gonzaga in 2013. That's pretty much Barnett's chance. And the line is super weird in this fight. They have Rothwell to win by decision, which is how I would maybe see it, plus 200. Yet the fight to go to distance is plus 140. So they think that the fight's going to end by finish, but they don't. I mean, the most likely person to win by decision is they still have that price super low. Whereas, Barnett to win by decision is plus 700. I figured with the line being plus 140 to go the distance, I'd get a much higher Ben Rothwell by decision line, and it's not.
I kind of understand that because Rothwell's got the size and durability. You would think he could grind him down, but the fact of the matter is nobody knows if once again, he's willing to pay a price, because if he's coming forward, Barnett's going to have lots of time to land those big lead counters, and we don't know that Rothwell can push the pace anymore. Against OSP, he didn't. He was just bigger and stronger. Everything he hit hurt the guy. And against Tybura, he was like a step and a half behind him the whole fight. I don't know that Rothwell has it in him to follow a guy, yes. To pressure a guy, yeah. But to cut off the cage and really apply real pressure and throw strikes, I don't know if he couldn't even do that against Junior Dos Santos. And I know Dos Santos is a much better fighter, but the whole thing I'm pointing at is an athletic guy who can move. And Barnett, if nothing else, is an athletic guy who can move. And to be quite honest, Barnett isn't as experienced, but he's got better defense. He's got better defense than OSP. He's got better defense than a lot of heavyweights. He shouldn't be as easy to hit. Now, if you can throw a lot of volume, you can wear him down because he has to move so much. I don't know that Ben Rothwell throws a lot of volume anymore. So if he doesn't catch him or put him on his ass and work him over, it's hard for me to figure out how he's going to consistently put enough pressure, enough volume to win a decision.
Yeah. So I don't know. For me, I'm gonna have to see how everybody looks. I might end up just circling Rothwell because what are the stats like just based on physical attributes? Again, like height and reach advantage. You already have like a 60% chance or whatever it is. That's pretty much probably how I'll end up taking it. And I hope that Barnett is somebody that is UFC caliber, because he deserves a decent fight after taking care of the UFC in this situation, coming in against a legend. But, from a betting perspective, I don't think there's much.
You mean an IFL legend, Ben Rothwell?
Yeah. See, I think this might be a place where I might just sprinkle a little on a dog here. Nothing crazy, but maybe a few bucks on Barnett by knockout plus 550. I know we haven't seen Rothwell get finished recently, but we have seen him get hurt by OSP, and we did see him get hurt by Tybura. And
he's hurt.
I think Barnett is a little bit, harder of a hitter than either of those guys. And I'm not saying that I think, he can really go out there and, it's going to look like, Barnett should have been the minus 500 guy, but I do think he's going to hold his own in there. And like we said, Rothwell, if he is on the wrong side here, then it might not be enough, but I think I'm going to take a chance on the underdog. But let's get on to the featured prelim. This one is sure to be an exciting fight based on what we've seen out of their UFC career so far. Ricardo Ramos versus Bill Algeo. So Algio is going to be a little bit taller. Ramos, not giving up too much in the reach, really just 1 inch, but he's only 25 years old, and Algio 31. Ramos has been in the UFC a lot longer, but Algio, he's had plenty of experience on the regional scene. This should be a good one.
Yeah, a fight that we were supposed to get about a month ago. COVID for Ramos. So that's an interesting thought right there. I kind of was on the Algio side to begin with. 6.8 strikes landed per minute for Bill Algio. That output, the way that he's going to try to dictate the pace, I really like that. 62% takedown defense is not fantastic, but it could be enough to get the job done when Ramos' takedown offense, 56%. It's, the stat is high, but I don't know how good he actually is in terms of implementing that game plan of getting close to a good striker, somebody that's going to be striking, hitting you multiple times per minute. I don't know that he's going to be able to. His striking is just the striking to grappling game. I don't know that he's fluid enough to get to where he wants to go.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, Ramos' takedowns really came against 1, Ayman Zahabi, 2, Journey Newsom, and 3, Eduardo Garagori. And Newsom is really the only one there that you're like, okay, that's pretty solid. But the other guys, come on, yeah, you should be able to wrestle those guys. So I guess I'm not too worried about that against Algio, who's got his own black belt and plenty of wrestling experience.
But for you to say right now that you're not worried about the wrestling of Ramos, okay, cool. Now, how does Ramos win? He can't, right?
Well,
why is the line
I think he's a more explosive striker, and one of the interesting things looking at their stats is that Ramos has really bad striking accuracy but really good striking defense, and Algio has really good striking offense and really bad striking defense. So there are going to be spots where you could see Algio maybe gas out a little bit if he puts on too much of a pace. Something we saw when he lost in the 3rd round to, a kind of a underground legend in his own right, Ricardo Lamas. And yeah, so Bill Algio, I do think he has a much better path to victory.
Striking defense number that's not a fair fight to lump in there. That was a Contender Series fight, and Lognin should absolutely be in the UFC. He's out, I believe, in PFL right now.
Had a big win too.
Huge win. Very excited to see him win. Very excited to continue to see him fight. He has a damn good chance at that $1 million. So to include that fight is kind of
Ricardo Lamas landed 66% himself.
So Ricardo Lamas, one of the premier guys in the division for a very, very
the problem for Algio is like they both kind of have some length on them, but only one of them uses it only one of them maximizes it. Where as far as defensively, Algio just keeps coming forward, and I don't care. Like Max Holloway is a very good defensive fighter, but if you're going to go forward that much, you're just going to get hit. There's a certain amount of contact you just have to accept. Ramos isn't like you said, he's not very accurate because once again, he's another fighter who doesn't build his offense. He has big spots. It'll be like a big knee, a big uppercut, a big right hand, a big spinning elbow. It'll be something dynamic that just comes out of nowhere.
And then he gasses.
But he doesn't have a way to control the pace of the fight. And with Algio is not going to let him. He's going to try to stay on the outside and be technical. Algio's going to keep getting in his face. And once again, Algio will be able to chop him down and wear him down. But in wearing him down and chopping him down, he's going to be exposing himself to fight-ending shots at every moment. And eventually, I feel like Algio is going to run into something. I think Ramos, the biggest problem he has is he just can't put anything together. He fights like a Mike Wigglejohn guy, like spinning kick here, flying knee here, spinning elbow here. It's no sort of rhyme or reason. It just comes out of the blue. He's like a finishing fighter, an effective striker. He's not a very efficient one. He's like a guy who hits home runs but bats like 128, but he hits like 50 home runs a year because he's just that kind of hitter. No consistency. So the question is, will Algio's pace, his cardio, while taking punishment, and his chin hold up, running full force into a guy who's known as a finisher, or is Ramos just going to gas himself out with these huge moments of athleticism and just get grinded out by Algio? The fight against Ricardo Lamas was impressive because he is established. He is a very seasoned guy, and it's hard to factor that in against Algio. But the fact of the matter is, he did lose it. I'm going to say that Algio probably can out-hustle him. I think he can out-hustle him but he's gonna be tiptoeing on that line because this guy throws fight-ending strikes as far as Ramos, and you're gonna constantly put yourself in the line of fire for that to do your work. Algio won't stay on the outside. He won't pick away. He won't set things up. He just gets in your face, breaks you down. He mentally wants to break you. And in doing that, he's going to run himself in the shot the same way Tony Ferguson does, the same way Ben Rothwell tries to break you does, the same way any guy who tries to break you does. And I'm going to assume he can handle it. His striking defense isn't good, so I'm just going to assume he can take a good shot, and he'll be able to navigate that. But he might very well get starched.
The line is as close as you kind of seem to feel in terms of its competitive closeness, as Algio's minus 120 and Ramos plus 102. So he's really only a slight favorite. Do you see any props? Like, is there anything you see, an over or under, a method? The over is juice. The over is juice to shit.
Yeah, well, I think realistically, you see a guy with a really good chin versus someone with really good striking defense. But I think the path to victory here for Algio, if he's smart, is the grappling. Lerone Murphy got in Ricardo Ramos's guard and was able to knock him out from full guard. I mean, that you can see the power. Lerone Murphy is a much bigger prospect. He's a much better fighter. But that just gives you an idea that Ramos isn't, beyond, being handled. And also, when he gets put in those bad positions, like against Said Nurmagomedov, and then all of a sudden he's knocked out by a spinning back kick. So it's not like Ramos isn't beyond having a bad appearance or being finished. So Algio, he's a very tricky guy. I think if you were to do any type of prop here, I would be looking at, Algio by decision is plus 150. Ramos by knockout is plus 700. If you feel good on a side and what you think is going to happen, those are the two props.
Yeah, I'm most interested plus 155 and plus 750 on FanDuel.
On FanDuel, yeah. So FanDuel tends to have a lot better prices on the props. We're finding.
Definitely. So I think we've covered this crazy fight. This is a really crazy, interesting fight. I think we've covered it as well as we can. Right? Time to hit this main card.
Yeah, the main card, and to lead us off, a fight that you might think would be a little higher placed on the card. Jack Hermanson versus Edmen Shahbazyan.
Kick off the main card with a bang, right?
Yeah, I guess you know what. Let's get them started with the fun one. They tend to do that. So, Jack Hermanson coming back from a very difficult decision loss to Marvin Vettori. He suffered a couple injuries early in that fight, where I'm very impressed that he fought through to the end. Then you have Edmen Shahbazyan, on the other hand, 4-0 going into his appearance against Derek Brunson. And let's just say Derek Brunson knows how to make me rich. Brunson,
shout out, baby Brunson,
really showed Shahbazyan 2 checks. So Shahbazyan, this really comes down to his power and athleticism on the feet, because we've seen Jack Hermanson struggle with athletic, powerful strikers, guys that can move, land some leg kicks, land on multiple levels, and give him a problem in the stand-up while being able to avoid the early takedowns. However, we've also seen that Shahbazyan can put himself in bad positions in the clinch, lead to takedowns, and get grinded out and get exhausted. And not just in the Brunson fight, but if you look all the way back early in his career, he gets a split decision win over Darren Stewart, and he looks horrible doing it. This guy was barely hanging on, gas tank completely empty, and that was the precursor to fading him against Derek Brunson.
That fight, mind you.
Yeah, and he wins, the first couple, right? And then the third round, man, he is barely hanging on. And that, it speaks to me that Jack Hermanson, he's a grinder. If you give him the chance, if you let him get in the clinch, get those Greco-Roman games going, he will take you down. But Shahbazyan, he's going to be a little bit taller, a little bit less reach, but he's much younger. So it's going to be tough to get him down early with how strong he is. But if you can wear into that gas tank, I think, it just depends where this fight plays out.
I just thought this Hermanson, when I see him fight, he's a big, strong guy. He's aggressive. He's tough in the sense that he likes contact. He likes to grind on you. But to me, he's so stiff. He's so unagile. Like, his takedowns are really laborious.
It really showed against Vettori, his stiffness. He looked like the
he just, it's like he's laboring so hard to get those takedowns. Every strike he throws, none of it's fluid, none of it's smooth, it's not not technical, it's just very raw technique. It's just nothing seems to come very easy. It seems like everything he does in the cage puts a tremendous strain on his cardiovascular system. He always looks tired. And against somebody like Shabazian, the fact of the matter is, like you said, he's very dynamic. His grappling, his wrestling isn't really layered to me. It's got that surface layer. He can get an initial scramble. He can get a takedown. He's not really high level. He doesn't have a lot of counters, but he has like one or two counters that set in there. And for most guys, that's enough because he's so much better than them on the feet, on top of being a high-end athlete. I don't quite know how Hermansson gets him to the ground without taking a tremendous, tremendous amount of punishment. He's not a great single leg. He doesn't have explosive double leg. He doesn't just explode into clinches. He kind of lumbers into them, and he likes to go forward. And Shabazian can fight off pivots and angles and off his back foot. So you're telling me that Hermansson's going to walk through fire against probably one of the sharper, more explosive, harder-hitting guys in middleweight, who's pretty much had everybody he's fought at middleweight in trouble. At some point early, he's had them in trouble. I don't know that Hermansson.
I do think he can walk through it. You want to know why? Because I'm worried about Shabazian's gas tank. Because I think after a round, if Shabazian doesn't get the finish that he's looking for, I think he could be very easily discouraged. And I know that Hermansson is going to keep coming. And while, he looked tired. I mean, he looked tired, and I've seen him go 5 now. I see him go 5 with Marvin Vettori. I seen him go 5 with Jacare Souza. I watched him get an unbelievable win against Kelvin Gastelum. Shout out one of my favorite MMA podcasts, MMA by the Numbers. Hermansson is 7-2 in the UFC when he lands at least one takedown, and those 2 losses are coming against Vettori and Cannonier.
Yeah.
So Shabazian has to be on their level, and he might be. I think that I don't know that Shabazian has worked on his takedown defense enough. Again, shout out MMA by the Numbers. Shabazian has allowed 5 takedowns on 12 attempts in the UFC, including 4 of 8 by Brunson.
But the thing about it is, and I know on the wrestling or grappling instance, technically it doesn't matter. I don't know that he's fought a worse athlete than Jack Hermansson. Like, there's a certain aspect of the athleticism and the fact that these guys are competent strikers where certain injuries are opened up because they can strike, and they're just much better athletes. They can leap in and get into those positions. And also, again, if I'm Shabazian, to me personally, if I'm fighting somebody like Hermansson, I don't have to do much more than angle out pivot, and I'm not even going for the head. I'm faking jabs to the head, but everything's a body head combination. Hermansson's great when he's dictating pace. The fights he's lost, somebody has stopped him, met him at the point of attack, and dictated to him. And when they've dictated to him, he hasn't liked it. The fights he's won, he's pretty much been in control in from beginning to end, where the opponent might fight their way back in it, but more or less they're either neutral or he's in control. The fight he's lost,
Agreed.
The minute he got pushed back, the minute he had to really take some punishment, that wasn't the same guy. I mean, Gastelum served himself up. Gastelum's a terrible grappler. He's a straightforward fighter who can't really grapple and can't really strike. He's an athlete who's tough. Jacare, as good as he is, Jacare fights in spots. Most of his ability is attribute based. He's big, strong. He was athletic. He's not as athletic as he used to be. He's not as strong as he used to be. Holes in his game. I've been calling out the holes in his game for like past 3 or 4 years. The Vettori fight is stunning because Vittori's not a great technician. But he's got a wide range of skills. He hits fairly hard. He's athletic. Cannonier's technically isn't great either. He's just a big, strong athlete. So to me, it's like Edmund is kind of a combination between those two. He's got a little bit of the width of skill like Vettori, but he's got the power and the explosiveness somewhere in the realm of a Jared Cannonier. I'm not saying Hermansson can't finish. Hermansson gets down, he can finish him. But I just have a really hard time thinking of how he finds those entries without taking a whole hell of a lot of punishment. He's not a kind of guy who takes punishment from guys who are good at distributing punishment.
So you'd put your money on Shabazian?
Yeah, I would put in. To me, it's pretty simple. Just jab and attack the body. Attack the body. Front kick to the body. Jab to the body. Everything. Body head first. Chop the leg.
Did Shabazian get the finish?
To be honest, for him to win this, he's probably going to have to. The cardio points you made stands. He can navigate it a little bit, but for him to win, he is probably going to have to get the finish. But it's only 3 rounds, so he might be able to navigate that a little bit better. But he's definitely, most likely, he will have to get a finish. A decision A decision would be more impressive to me if he was fresh in a decision than a stoppage win, because that would show us that he's taking some steps forward. But what I actually think he's going to do is they're going to start coming up with a little bit more tricks and a little bit more variation in his levels he's attacking with his strikes to kind of break the pressure, disrupt the pressure, so he's not on his bike constantly moving. Like, I'll just pivot. Instead of me running away, I'm going to pivot and walk you into a check hook. I'm going to pivot, duck under, pop, 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 step off, instead of having to run. Because when you run, that's where the energy goes. If you can pivot and slide, you can do that all night long. And
I can't even believe what I'm looking at right now. The fight to go the distance prop plus 225. They are hammering a finish in this fight.
Yeah, I you know what I believe is. So the things that stand out to me as far as why this fight can be finished are that, one, if you see Shahbazyan get in any extended grappling exchange, I think you could see Hermansson getting a knockout or a submission. And I think if, Shahbazyan is able to keep it on the feet in the first 2 rounds, he's extremely live to knock him out at any point. Brunson is much physically stronger than Hermansson. So Shahbazyan's taking a step down in athleticism, a step down in wrestling technique, and a step down in toughness and experience. Yeah.
I said the same thing when Valentina fought Andrade, because people are like, you were wrong. She dominated her. I'm like, she took her down like 5 times in a round, right? And they're like, yeah. I was like, I said it'd be difficult. So for her to take someone down 5 times in a round, what does that mean? That means she got up quickly. Brunson took him down, but he was able to get up initially. If he gets up against somebody like Hermansson, I don't know that Hermansson works back to his feet very quickly. I don't know that he processes stuff very quickly. And if Edmund's not afraid of it, he scrambles back up, Edmund's coming firing. Hermansson's not getting out of the way of that. Hermansson's not the athlete, and he doesn't have the seasoning or the conditioning of a Derek Brunson. Derek Brunson is grinded on people and had fights go back and forth and had to survive. I've never seen Hermansson do that. He has to be in control. And in the scrambles, he won't be. He has to get him down, and he has to hold him down and get to work. If they scramble, get back up, I think it's problems.
Yeah, so I'm leaning the underdog Shahbazyan.
Wow.
And if I'm doing a prop, I'm doing the I guess the most expensive prop, the cheapest prop. Shahbazyan by knockout plus 250, and then Hermansson plus 260 by knockout. The most likely proposition here is Edmund Shahbazyan by knockout when he's the plus 130 underdog. Doesn't that say something weird to you? Or is it just that they're saying Hermansson has more ways to win? But I really think that's interesting that Shahbazyan is plus 250, whereas the Hermansson props are, you get better odds on those. So to me, I'm going
one last thing. I like the fact that Edmund took time off. A lot of guys try to jump right back in, and they end up getting exposed to the same hole. He hasn't fought since he got beat by Brunson, which means he took time to recover, and he really looked at his craft and said, "What I think that's what it means to me." He took time to look at his craft and say, "What can I do better to better prepare myself?" He knows what everybody's going for now, the gas tank, because people know they can't strike with him. They know he's not easy to take down and hold down, so they're going to try and grind him. He has to know that. So that's what he has to prepare for now.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I was almost going to say, you quote unquote fade the recency bias, but the Marvin Vettori loss for Hermansson is actually more recent than the Derek Brunson loss. I think why it would still be that is the quote unquote recency bias is that loss to Derek Brunson just stands out more because he was a favorite and because he pretty much got knocked out at the end of that second round and they shouldn't have continued the fight. And then 20 seconds into the third round, he was done.
Yeah, his corner.
It was a weird 3-round main event as well. It was just a super weird thing. So now that I really come full picture and I talk to you guys, I think you have to fade the narrative that Shahbazyan is not as good or blah blah blah. I think you got to take Shahbazyan here. I think you're right.
I mean, getting knocked down in the first round by Vettori is an extremely bad luck for Hermansson. And Vettori went to the grappling after he got the knockdown, and he landed like 10 ground and pound strikes. And then Vettori was too worried about gassing himself out, and he pulls off and he goes for the neck, and then he gives Hermansson time to recover and get back into it. That's not happening with Shahbazyan. Shahbazyan hits much harder than Vettori. You can just see the lights go out rather than him getting dropped. Yeah. All right. So hey, let's get on to our next fight. This one, we have a little bit less overall tape compared to our last few fights, but one that I still think I have a pretty strong position on. David Dvorak coming in against Raulian Paiva, and this line has been moving the complete opposite of what I expected. When I saw it open up, I will say I was surprised that Dvorak was such a big favorite, almost minus 200. But now the line just keeps on coming down, and wow, now I'm getting really interested in placing a bet here, and cashing out on Dvorak at minus 150.
Minus
Paiva at
148
plus
on
120.
FanDuel.
Yeah, like we said, we keep getting better lines over here on FanDuel, and
Hey, FanDuel sponsor us.
keep looking over there. Yeah, right. So Dvorak 2-0 in the UFC, 19-3 overall on a huge win streak. Raulian Paiva 20-3 overall, 2-2 in the UFC. And to be honest here, Paiva should probably be 1-3 in the UFC. His last fight against Zhumagulov, that's one of those ones I want to rule a robbery. Paiva's landing groin strikes. He's landing, all these horrible things and no point deductions. And poor Zhumagulov outlands him by almost 20 strikes, lands 2 takedowns to Paiva's 0, and loses a unanimous decision to Raulian Paiva. Then Mark De La Rosa was a round 2 knockout for Paiva, a nice win. But then Paiva loses to Bontorin on a weird cut stoppage, and he has a split decision loss to Cara France. He moved out, it looked like, to Team Alpha Male at one point. And then Dvorak, he's training, he's been at Phuket Top Team, he's been at Tiger Muay Thai, trains out of All Sports Academy, it looks like. Switch stance. I'm extremely impressed with the technique of Dvorak, and I just think that he has a lot more to offer in the toughness and the overall game plan, where Paiva, I think really what he has to offer here is his height, but I think that's going to work against him in this matchup.
Yeah, Paiva just doesn't seem very good to me. Like, even beating Mark De La Rosa doesn't. I mean, nothing against him. He's a fighter. He's obviously accomplished. I don't want to take that away from him, but he's not very good, and he hasn't shown to be very good in the UFC. I know that Paiva.
Is he even still in the UFC?
No, I think they actually got rid of Mark De La Rosa finally. They gave up on the dream of the.
Well, I mean, only one of them was really UFC level. So, I mean, no offense.
So the biggest thing that stands out to me, and we'll get back to this one because I don't really have much to say on this fight. The biggest thing that stands out to me is the lack of Paiva's striking defense. Just how many strikes he absorbs per minute. That is something that stands out to me majorly. He actually absorbs more strikes per minute than he lands. And he hasn't even fought anybody that good. So, Bontorin and Kai France are his best fights. And, those guys are, top 10 on their best day, top 15 on their best day.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, he seems,
and that's their best day.
He doesn't seem athletically great. Technically, he seems like a willing striker, willing wrestler, willing grappler, just not very good. He seems like he's game. He seems like he's fairly tough, but he just seems very limited.
Where does Paiva even train out?
I know he had some connection with Team Alpha Male, which doesn't make me feel any better about it, because they're not great for their strategy. Nope. Their game plans are real first layer type stuff, and I just don't have any faith in him. I haven't seen any growth in his skill set. I haven't really seen anything that shows me that he's gotten better from the first fight he's been in there. He's only looked good against criminally outgunned people, and against anybody who's fairly competent in the UFC level, he's looked terrible at. I mean, he didn't really look really competitive in those fights. So I have to favor his opponent. I think he's looked at nothing else consistent, and he's shown some potential for growth. I don't see any potential for growth in Paiva.
Yeah, so Dvorak, when I'm watching him, really mix it up. So he's got 8 knockouts, 7 submissions, 4 decisions. Both of his UFC wins are decision. So this guy can get it done any which way. What really impressed me, he switches stances extremely well. Incredible calf kicks, which are going to be very important against Paiva because he's so heavy on that lead leg. This is where his height works against him. Also, the body-head combos of Dvorak. Schwann's always talking about how important those are. And his overhand right counter is always on the money. Dvorak was a chess champion. He's extremely intelligent, great head movement, great footwork, feints, timing. Dvorak is comfortable in there. He used to be an Undertaker. This guy's ice cold. He's on, I think it's something like a 15-fight win streak. He's on a roll.
Since 2012.
Yeah, and Paiva.
Maybe this is the play. Maybe we parlay Bruno Silva and David Dvorak plus 115.
This was my play. This is the one. So as far as my parlay of the favorites for the card, Dvorak, Bruno Silva, put them together, enjoy what you get out of it. It should be pretty easy sailing. Like we said, Paiva not going to come in with the best game plan. He's too willing to stand in the phone booth and throw combos. I could see him getting finished. I could see him getting outpaced to a decision. I could see him getting grappled. I could see him getting outstruck. I can see Dvorak taking this any which way. So, the only thing that Paiva really has in his advantage here, and shout out, Dan Tom and the Protect Your Neck podcast, because he says it all the time. The MMA bettors love the sexy, long, athletic strikers, the guys that look like they have the power on their pop and the punches, 25 years old, young prospect. That's why the line slid. That's why we're getting a better price on Dvorak here. And when you see these guys at face-off, you might get an even better price because, Paiva's going to look a lot bigger, but Dvorak's only giving up 1 inch of reach. I don't think it's going to be a problem.
And to be fair, with athletic, long guys, you can always have that moment where they just land a big shot or something. But if you look at it, you look at the actual fights and you say, let's take out the dynamic play out of it. Who can actually win a fight from 1 to 10 in a skilled way, as far as pressure, as far as IQ, as far as strategy? It's not even a competitive fight. The only thing you would go with Pavia is maybe he could be aggressive and dynamic in a spot. But if that's not enough to turn the fight or win the fight, nobody can explain to me how Pavia will win. I'm like,
and we've seen that his aggression just leads him to getting hit more. It doesn't actually help him win fights. It puts him.
It helps because a certain class of fighter, a certain class of athlete, you can just overwhelm him. You have me against a world class UFC fighter, even if he's technically awful, he can just athletically overwhelm me. You put me against somebody who's aggressive, who's on my level athletically, I'm just beating the shit out of him. That's what happens. He gets to a comparable level, he gets sent right back down. He gets to a lesser level, looks like a beast. That's concern to me. I can't. What is he? His name is Dvorak, right? Dvorak, how you say it?
Yeah.
He's at least looked competent and skilled against guys who he didn't have tremendous advantages over, and guys who were at least serviceable fighters. The guys that probably looked the best against weren't serviceable UFC fighters.
Completely agree on that. And it sounds like we're all in agreement on this fight. So let's get on to one that actually might cause a little discourse over here, given where I might end up on this one. Felicia Spencer, the Phenom, coming off of a tough decision loss to Nunes.
Assault. That was assault and battery. That was even a fight.
And then she has the audacity to put the belt on her afterwards. I mean, come on. That's so disrespectful.
That's pretty bad.
I mean, Norma Dumont can't make bantamweight. This poor girl, every time she tries to cut down to 135, she's at 139 and a half. They gave up on that idea. So now Felicia Spencer getting a short notice Dumont. Can she make 145 on short notice? I have no idea. That's going to be half the excitement at the scales for this fight. And, what I will say is that if Dumont does come in on shape, this could actually be a little bit tougher for Spencer than, it might seem on paper, because Spencer, I know it says she has a Taekwondo black belt and she can get some high kicks up. I mean, it doesn't look good when she's doing it. And, her coaches, I really don't trust her corner. They're telling them to throw teep kicks at Nunes, like that's going to do anything in the 4th and 5th round.
Listen,
what are you talking about? How about some flying teep kicks? Come on, man. Yeah. That's terrible. And then Norma Dumont, she's willing to get into the grappling, as we saw against Megan Anderson. It's just if her gas tank is willing to let her do that. And, she's going to have to be able to be strong enough to hold up against Spencer. Norma Dumont, she's going to be an inch taller, a little bit younger. Maybe she could keep it in the stand-up where she's going to have a big advantage.
I don't know. I don't necessarily think badly Norma Dumont. I don't think she's a particularly special fighter. She seems, I guess, for competent in striking, not great, fairly competent in wrestling and grappling. I think the biggest question in the fight is, what does Felicia Spencer have left? Because she took a pretty hellacious beating for 5 rounds. And those big highlight reel knockouts with the one shots, those aren't the ones that fuck you up. It's the one, excuse my language, mess you up. It's the one.
Oh, you're good, man.
When you take 3 to 5 rounds of just abuse, and she took a beating. She took a one-sided beating, and those are the fights that tend to not.
She held her own. She got one little cut of stitches, and she's
come on.
And she hasn't fought since that fight.
Yeah,
right. That was in June of last year.
That was a beating.
I just noticed it's a lot of abuse.
She's fan.
And the worst part is that was right after, and that was only a fight removed when she fought Chris Cyborg and took like a 3-round beating. So it's like she's taken 2 tremendously punishing fights back to back. which shows that she's got a great
Well, no,
chin.
she beat Zara Farin
Oh, okay,
in
yeah.
between.
So
But like whatever, a round one ground and pound.
the grappling should be in her advantage, and we know she'll go for the finish. And I think you can catch Dumont off guard and finish her quickly. But I mean, Spencer's just not a very good striker. But she.
All right. What about the MMA math? What about the MMA math that Felicia Spencer finishes Megan Anderson round one via rear naked choke, and Megan Anderson finishes Dumont via right cross in the first round?
Yeah, but Megan Anderson's a better striker than Spencer.
Oh, for sure.
And Dumont's a better grappler than Anderson. Anderson's a terrible grappler.
That's why
she might be the worst grappler in MMA.
Yeah, to Schwann's point here, I mean, Cyborg landed 122 strikes and Nunes landed 124 strikes. That's a lot of punishment against two of the strongest female fighters out there. And, so to me, I'm staying away because there's way too many unknowns as far as, what Spencer's going to look like coming back, if Dumont's going to come in actually on shape with a gas tank, because that could just take all the bets off. Dumont comes in and weighs in at 149 pounds somehow.
I just don't know how you can think. I mean, listen, of course it can happen. Anything can happen, especially in women's MMA. But like the Ashley Evans Smith fight, what is that worth? That's worth nothing. What did that show me? That shows me nothing. That shows me that, I mean, maybe that you're a professional fighter. That's what that shows me. Other than that, I don't know that she's gonna be able to do much against Spencer.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I don't want to get confused. I think Spencer, she's done better, been against better opposition. She's fought more in the UFC more times. It's really her fight to lose. I just have some concerns because you just never, you just never really know. I mean, like she's taken a long time off, but has her team gotten her better? I don't know about that. Can she still take a shot? I don't know about that.
So I think that the fight is a pass, like you guys are saying. But how about, does this line not stand out to you a little bit? Felicia Spencer by submission plus 340.
I mean, how else is she going to win it?
That seems so
plus
high.
340. Whoa, what is that? That doesn't seem right for a minus 186 on Felicia Spencer. The prop for that is wow. That okay. So yeah, if you're looking to play a prop, there's one way Spencer wins this fight, and it's by submission. So plus 340, I think Guru found a diamond in the rough here. Get that down before that gets bet to like plus 200.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense to me. So I mean, I think that that's possible. Even Felicia Spencer by KO is plus 700. We've seen her get ground and pound in her last win.
Ooh, this is actually the rare opportunity. So submission is only plus 300 on DraftKings, but if you're talking knockout, it's plus 1,000 on DraftKings. So they actually have the better price on that one.
Wow, that's major. So I think some maybe small flyers on some props in this fight, but really it's a stay away. This fight should be a bottom three prelim fight. I have no idea why this is on the main card.
They wanted it's supposed to be Danielle Wolf, but she pulled out, so that's why they wanted to get Wolf and Shine.
Exactly, that reminds me. And Wolf would have had no chance in this fight, so that made no sense either. She's a boxer, right?
Yeah,
she can't grapple.
The UFC was probably thinking she can move her feet, she's long, she's powerful, and this girl's easy to hit, so maybe Wolf can just get her out of there because they want Wolf. They want Wolf to get.
Yeah. So all right. Let's get on to another slop fest. The obligatory.
Jeez Louise.
Let's not spend too much time because listen, it's the obligatory heavyweight main card. They got to throw one out there in case there's a crazy meme-worthy knockout. Justin Tafa versus Jared Vanderaa. There's two ways this fight goes. I'm not betting either side of it. Tafa's either going to starch him on the feet or pace himself to a win on the feet by decision and win that way, or Vanderaa is going to be like, oh shit, I have no chance with this guy on the feet. I'm 4 inches taller and have much more reach. Let me just get on top of this guy with my jiu-jitsu and grind him out. Those are the two ways the fight goes. I don't trust either guy to execute their game plan. And I just don't like this fight at all. Being on the main card, Vanderaa lost his debut to Spivak by brutal ground and pound. And Tafa just lost an ugly split decision, which was actually kind of fun fight, but it was a slap fest against Felipe.
Use that word fun very, very loosely.
Yeah, I mean, they were willing to throw up the guard and, get in there and throw a little bit. But, yeah, they went into the clinch fest. And, yeah, I'm not trusting either side.
Yeah, I'll just say I probably favor Tafa. I mean, he's got some clear ways to lose a fight, but I'm just gonna say I'm gonna go with him. He hits hard. He seems like he's in fairly good condition. He's obviously very vulnerable. He's not great on the ground either, but a lot of the heavyweight fights when it comes to ground, really, you have to be a certain caliber to get to the ground consistently without soaking up punishment. I don't think that guy is. But then again, I could be wrong. He might just take him down and choke him out. So.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I saw what I did see from Vandera, even though he looked pretty pitiful versus Spivak, he's damn tough, man. He took a beating. And if you can wear on Tafa, and if you can last around, Tafa ain't got nothing left after that.
Yeah, that's true. You know,
Yeah,
I never like to go with those kind of
like you
ifs. Like
said,
if you
yeah.
can survive it, if you can handle. I'm just not very fond of those type of things. And Tapa just seems like he's fair. He doesn't seem like a great athlete, but he seems kind of explosive with his shots. But once again, it's heavyweight. We've seen lots of fights where they gas after 30 seconds, and the other guy just drags the guy down and submits him. So it's 50.
I mean, if it's a true slot fest, do we like the over 1.5 minus 118?
Yeah, I like it to go. See, if it stays standing in the first round and you don't see Vandera shoot for any takedowns, I mean, Tafa by knockout minus 110 is going to look like silly in retrospect because he has such a clear advantage on the feet, and Vandera looks so bad against Hunsucker on the feet until he realized that he was a giant compared to him and got him on the mat and pounded him out. But like, I don't know that I trust Vandera to do it properly here. But listen, plus 800 by submission if you think he really does use the grappling and can get Tafa exhausted and you want to throw a little flyer out there, but I'm not doing any of that.
This is another fight that should absolutely be on the prelims. Have no idea why this is on the main card.
Yeah.
I'm just glad that we're not
They're probably figuring it's going to be a finish, and that recency bias, if the main card has a bunch of finishes, then everybody said, oh, it's a great card. We had all these finishes.
It seems like, yeah, like you said, we're setting ourselves up for a finish here. So let's not spend any more time on that one. Should be pretty crazy outcomes, and let's get to a really exciting fight in the women's 125 division, right? So Xiaonan Yan versus Carla Esparza, big time veteran facing the big time up and comer. Now, someone who had 5 knockouts and 2 decisions coming into the UFC. Xiaonan has 6 decisions. All 6 of her fights in the UFC have all gone to decision in her favor. And she's faced some decent names, Karan, Pereira, Kondo, but then she faces Angela Hill, Kovalkiewicz, and
you said
Gedalia.
The key words in there. She's faced some interesting names, not necessarily interesting or great fighters.
Definitely not.
Right, exactly. And it really sketches me out here. Carla Esparza, the grinder, the one that knows how to get to a decision victory, the high-level wrestler, the low-level striker. And Xiaonan is going to have a height advantage here, but they have the same reach. Esparza is 8-4 in the UFC, a lot of experience. She has been knocked out a couple times, but when it's Joanna and when it's Tatiana Suarez, you can give her a pass on those two. Because Xiaonan, she's going to be content if she does give up those takedowns. She works off her back and throws elbows. It's like the Marina Rodriguez, and I don't trust that. That she's not always working to get up so quickly. And Esparza, she's got a gas tank, so if she puts on the pace here, if you're betting on Yan and you're sitting there with holding your ticket and watching her just get grinded out, how are you going to feel in round 2?
Yeah, that's so funny. I really expected you to be on Yan Xiaonan, and you and I made a specific point not to talk as much together this week. So I thought I was going to come in with a blaze of glory and talk about how Carla Esparza would be my dog of the night. Yan Xiaonan, while she's worked on her power, learned how to sit on her strikes, and her boxing is so technical, so crisp. I mean, she is very exciting to watch. She, when engaged into much closer range, when engaged into the clinch, she's not as good. And you saw when she gets put on her ass, she doesn't know how to get up, and she doesn't have any urgency to. She has a willingness to fight from guard, to throw elbows and try to land some damaging strikes. You saw in the Karolina Kowalkiewicz fight where she breaks Karolina Kowalkiewicz's orbital bone in the first couple minutes. I don't think we've seen Karolina since, have we? We have not. No, we have not seen her since because of the horrific damage she took in that fight. If she had any sense of fighter wherewithal or real, she should have finished that fight. It's ridiculous that fight continues. You see Karolina Kowalkiewicz out of desperation get a body lock on her. If she had any sort of where, like Karolina, who's so damaged, so hurt, and so tired now, if she had any sort of wherewithal to continue with that, she'd be able to lock that in. Instead, Jan kind of reverses a little bit and then pushes her up against the cage and then separates. Then you see in Claudia Gadelha has the perfect first round that you could have. You're aggressive, you start her out, you push her against the cage, you take her down. She wins that round, no problem. Classic Gadelha, she completely gasses and does nothing for the next two. Drops the next two. On the opposite side, you see Carla Esparza on a 4-fight winning streak against decent competition. Marina Rodriguez, Michelle Waterson, split decisions, the majority decision win against Grasso. The Michelle Waterson fight, that's really tough because, again, Esparza's distance striking isn't great, but you see Waterson from distance, she throws strikes from a million miles away. She is an incredible distance striker. So that was difficult for her, and we know how tough she is. And then Marina Rodriguez, the up-and-comer, that fight was, another crazy, weird fight where Marina probably, in my mind, won the first round and then lost the next two. For me, and I'll wrap up my point at this, Esparza has seen everything that Jan Janan can give her and has seen it from people that do it better than her. I think Marina Rodriguez is a better striker. I think Michelle Waterson's a better striker. I think Agrasso's a better boxer. Jandirobi's better at grappling. I mean, she's seen it all. So what can Janan actually present here? Other than maybe an Esparza at 33 who's diminished and just doesn't have it. But we haven't seen that. So that would be a new finding.
Yeah, Jan, I like her a lot. She's got clean strike. She listens to her coaches. They have her very well prepared. She has a lot of poise in the cage. Her entries into her strikes, her striking at range is very sharp. She's very busy. She pushes a pace, and she tries to tend to build on that pace. And I think that's been good enough for her, and I think that's really good of her. The thing that you can't tell is how does she react when she can't get to the spot she wants to, or she can't stay in the spot she wants to, or she gets put into a spot that she doesn't want to be put in, and she can't just easily escape. She can't athlete her way out. She can't just shove her way out. What's going to happen then? I've talked to fighters, and we've gone through this detailed game plan to look for this, and when you get this spot, you do this. But the first time they really face resistance, a lot of them, especially the younger fighters, tend to panic, and they'll just concede a range or they'll concede a position so they don't get finished or they don't exhaust themselves instead of improving their position or fighting back to kind of exhaust their opponent. And that's my concern with Jan, because all the people she's fought, they're not high IQ fighters. Angela Hill, no offense to Hill, not a high IQ fighter, not a strategist.
At least not at that stage.
Yeah.
She got so much better fight to fight.
Karolina Kowalkiewicz, would you describe her as high IQ? Great athlete, not a great technical fighter, not a great strategist. Pereira, good athlete, not really great strategist. Kondo, too physically faded to be anything more than a body. Hill, not a great strategist or technician. Kowalkiewicz, not a great technician or strategist. Claudia Gadelha, as good as she's been, great athlete, has a pretty good skill set, is one of the dumbest fighters as far as strategy and making adjustments. All these fighters she's beat are one-note fighters who fight the same way no matter what kind of opening you provide for them. They stick to whatever they're going to do. Carla Esparza is like a Misha Tate in the fact that she can not just make adjustments from opponent to opponent. She can make adjustments within the round. She can make adjustments between the round. No matter what success Jan has, at some point, Carla is going to take something away from her and make her go to a plan B or make her work so hard to get her plan A off that she should go to a plan B. I don't know that Jan has the wherewithal to go to a plan B. To be quite honest, I don't even know that she has a plan B. I know that she has a problem getting back up. I know that she has a problem with physical fighters to get their hands on them. I know that she's not a great striker on the inside. Carla's not great at distance, but Carla's dealt with people with boxing backgrounds. Alexa Grasso, who's also a better athlete than Jan. Marina Moroz, she was a world ranked amateur boxer at some point. So this isn't something new for Carla. Carla's faced this opponent. Carla's faced length. She's faced clean boxing. She's faced fighters who can fight at a pace. Jan has never faced anybody with any sort of diversity in IQ and poise and measurement to their game. All the people she faced, as soon as you shut this down, they're done. That is not going to be.
And how about like an American, like a wrestling background,
Yeah.
as strong as Carla's, with a specific game plan to take you down like that?
Yeah, and the worst part about the thing about Carla is Carla doesn't just use her takedowns to get takedowns. She uses them to exhaust you and to make you more like open up to her strikes, because now you don't want her hanging on you. You're already breathing hard, so now she fakes, comes over the top. She's not a great striker, but she's a functionally effective one. I don't know that. I didn't know that Jan's a functionally effective grappler.
So, Schwan, would you say that Carla's the dog of the night play here? Would you say she's the strongest dog on the card that you feel?
She has to be. She's got she's beaten better strikers. She's beaten better athletes. She's beaten better experience. She's beaten better, more accomplished fighters. The only people who have beaten her are pretty much close to elite at the time. We don't know what Jan is, because Jan's been beaten up on basically third and fourth tier fighters. She hasn't beat a second tier fighter yet. Well, I take it back. Claudia Gadelha is a loosely second tier fighter at this stage.
Yeah.
But I mean, she didn't. When Claudia was fresh, she had nothing for Claudia. When Claudia got tired, she had something for her. That tells you all you need to know. And I'm not saying she can't just jump on Carla, but Carla's had bigger, better athletes jump on her, and she still managed to navigate that. So I would say she's the strongest dog on the fight. I wouldn't put her as a dog, but she is, because of the win streak of Jan. And you put money on Carla and she wins, as you know, you're going to make a lot of money on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, another interesting look at, like I was kind of talking about before, when you have the underdog with the best price as far as the prop goes. Carla Esparza is plus 140 by decision, and Jan is plus 150. So they think it's slightly more likely, if the fight goes to decision, that Esparza wins, even though she's the plus 100 underdog. So that says a lot to me. And you know what? I saw Carla Esparza, seeing that, okay, I'm close to the title fight. I need to go for a finish. I need to be exciting. She drops down for the heel hook against Rodriguez, and maybe doesn't work because Rodriguez is a little longer. She's able to elbow her and hit her with those strikes from the bottom as she goes for the heel hook. Yan Xiaonan almost got choked out by a triangle at the end of the first round against Angela Hill. Zero urgency to get her hands, both hands in or out of the triangle choke. Saved by the bell against Angela Hill. If you get submitted by Angela Hill,
you should retire or be kicked out of the UFC. You should have your pink slip waiting in the corner for you. Get out.
Yeah. Yeah, so plus 650 Esparza by submission if you think she's going to end up on top. And I haven't seen Xiaonan really put in that type of position before. But money line, that's the safest
just
play.
Esparza money line.
Esparza money line. She's the underdog, like you said so nicely yourself.
We just never seen Jan fight back. We've essentially seen her beat up girls. She hasn't been in a fight in her entire career. We haven't seen her fight back. She's just been beating up girls, having her way. Okay, so what happens? And if she gets taken down and she panics and she gets submitted, people will be like, "Oh, I should have seen that coming." Now that you mention it, she's never had to make an adjustment. It's one of those fights where you look at it and you'd say, "This girl," and then if this girl loses, you're like, now that I think about it, I should have seen this. Like, how did I not factor this into the fight?
Totally. And I think it sounds like that's pretty great. We all came in separately. Let's get to the main event.
Cody Garbrandt versus Rob Font. Does he have a nickname? No. He's just Rob Font.
Listen, it's Rob Font.
He's just Rob Font, and that's enough for him, and that's cool. I happen to love Cody, so it's been difficult for me to try to flesh out some of that stuff. Let me preface that. I used to really like Cody, and I've kind of drifted in terms of how much I like him. I don't understand what he's doing with pit bulls. Can somebody please explain to me why he's cutting off pit bulls' ears and then selling them? I don't understand what
I don't even want to know about it. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, no, it's horrible.
Yeah, it's horrible.
I don't really like him as much. Listen, hey, I don't share that same, past, whatever. I just remember watching him into the game here, so
he was
I come in the same way
coming up. Watching him beat Dominic Cruz was just I just hated Dom. This is one of my favorite moments in UFC history. Just watching that live.
That was an extremely exciting fight, and you got to hope that Cody's going to bring some of that dancing ability into this one. He's got 5 rounds with a much taller, much longer opponent. Okay, maybe not much taller, but we're talking, what is it, a 5-inch reach advantage? They're both 5'8", but yeah, I mean, Rob Font's 6-inch reach advantage, and he's 4 years older. Now, what makes me extremely nervous is seeing the camp that he's coming out of, given the performance that we saw against a good boxer and Max Holloway for Calvin Kattar. I don't know how good Rob Font's striking defense really is when he has to face a guy with the type of athleticism and explosion as Cody Garbrandt. And I say that as someone that faded Cody Garbrandt in his last fight against Rafael Assunção, but I saw some things in that fight that really made me feel comfortable as far as dumb Cody not coming out and swinging for the fences, dumb Cody not coming out and causing a phone booth fight when he doesn't need to. And I think we saw a little bit more of the Dom Cruz type of deal. And I think we saw some intelligent feints. I think we saw a lot of leg kicks, some good defensive counter wrestling. And in this fight, I think we could actually see Garbrandt use a little bit of his offensive wrestling if it needs to get there. Now, Font, I don't think he's going to be able to take Cody Garbrandt down, and nor do I think he tries to. He's going to probably try to use his length to stay on the outside, but I don't think he's that great defensively. And a lot of the guys that he's faced have been able to hurt him, and I know that he has 0 knockdowns on his record. I know that he has 0 knockout losses, but Munoz rocks him and gets him to dive into a takedown attempt and guillotines him. So that's not a knockdown, but he gets seriously hurt there. We see him against Ricky Simone. He gets caught by a check hook and gets wobbled against Simone in the first round, and then gets taken down with a big slam promptly after, which, maybe Simone should have kept that on the feet and he could drop him. So Cody, I don't think he's going to be so quick to get away from his striking, obviously. And it's going to be an uphill battle as far as the athleticism goes for Font. Now, he's going to have to rely on his technique and jab and everything like that, but it's going to be tough to keep Cody
Font
from
has to
closing
fight
Font
has to be perfect. Font has to be at his best. Font needs to fight the absolutely perfect fight for 25 minutes to beat Cody Garbrandt.
A lot of people, the thing, I used to know a guy, he used to work with Jessica Eye before she, and he worked with Stipe. His name is Joe. I forget his last name, but he used to be a boxing trainer with Jessica Eye and Stipe. He also worked with Cody Garbrandt when he was coming up. Cody Garbrandt's uncle also taught him how to box, basically, and this guy helped him out. And he was telling me how Cody has gotten progressively worse as he's been at Team Alpha Male because they don't really have a structured system in striking. Their thing is getting comfortable with athleticism because they have a lot of athletes, getting comfortable in scrambles, getting comfortable in wrestling, getting comfortable in grappling. Their striking style is very attribute-based. There's not a bunch of structure. They don't build off their offense. There's no real point of emphasis outside of landing big shots, forcing a pace, and all that nonsense. So he got worse. The fight against Dominic Cruz was probably when he was still on that front end of it. You saw him slipping, aggressively countering, touching the body, jabbing, pivoting, all that stuff. When he fought TJ Dillashaw, you saw that early. You didn't see it so much late. The second fight, you didn't really see it at all. You saw against Pedro Munoz, he was basically just spamming right hands and running right into him. It was just really shocking how far he had gotten away from one of his biggest advantages in mixed martial arts, which is his not just his striking, his actual boxing, the footwork, the distance
and
control, the parries, the slips. He used to do all that stuff. And in the last couple fights prior to Assunção, you didn't see any of that. You just saw him jumping out, bombing on people. His striking looked a little sloppy. His footwork looked a little slow. But he started working with Mark Henry, and I'm hoping that he's continued to work with him. And again, when he started working with Mark Henry, you didn't see he showed better shot selection. He showed more accuracy. Part of the knockout came off a level change, a fake level change. He started, instead of headhunting, he was touching the body using multiple levels. And if he does that against Font, it's going to be very hard for Font because Font's defense isn't great. The thing is, most MMA fighters, even the elite ones, their defense isn't great either. Font's offense is just a little bit better. And when most guys land offense, they know their defense is suspect. That's why they go for takedowns because they're like, even if I stay on the feet, I'm at a 50-50 chance of getting countered because I don't have the natural maneuvers and technique. So they don't have any faith in their defense. They don't really have much faith in their offense. Font's offense is better than most guys' defense. That's what he's exploiting. That's what he exploited against Marlon Moraes. Marlon's a great athlete with great offensive striking. He has no gas tank, and his defense has always been terrible.
He did not want to be in that fight. But he didn't want to be there.
He's just so dynamic athletically that he gets away with a bunch of stuff. But he's not good defensively. Cody Garbrandt, at his peak, Cody Garbrandt, when he's sharp, is good defensively. Ricky Simon is not good defensively. Assunção is good defensively. and Font lost to him. Munoz is a little bit harder to hit than you would think. Sergio Pettis is a win for Font, but once again, Sergio Pettis, even though he's good defensively, he doesn't have any power. So against Cody, you have a guy who's got wrestling chops, who's got good defense on the feet, and has power. And I think even though Cody's been knocked out, his chin isn't as bad as people make it out to be.
No way.
Munoz hit him with 3 clean shots
be.
before he knocked him out. Dillashaw hit him with 3 big right hands before he knocked him out. It's not like you just touch him and he's done. So
I'll never get past that first fight. How if that first round went like 5-10 seconds longer, Cody, everybody forgets that Cody was going to win that fight.
Yeah,
he had TJ completely rocked, wobbling back to his corner, completely. He was completely out of it.
He tied him and caught him with a counter. Like Garbrandt is best when he's using his speed and athleticism as a counter. He's setting it up, drawing out the attack, slipping, parrying, pivoting, and just blasting you. That's when he's at his best. Him chasing you is not. He got back to that against the Sun Sao, and the Sun Sao is a much harder person to hit, a much harder person to time, a much harder person to find your spots against than Font. Font isn't hard to find. It's just Font's going to make you pay a price for coming after him. But the fact of the matter is, Font's not a big hitter. I mean, knocking out Moraes doesn't mean anything to me. He's not a big hitter. He couldn't knock out. Sergio Pettis is a little bit fragile.
Ground and pound. He has no. It's not one hit KO power like Cody. Like you saw Cody throw the bomb, and you see a Sun Sao. If you watch, I couldn't.
And the Sun Sao's durable. He's very durable.
He's asleep before he hits the canvas, and that's why he falls straight on his face. He's asleep. There's only a few guys in the UFC that have power like that.
Yes.
I mean, it is completely, it cannot be stated enough, like the level of power that Cody possesses.
And his speed. He's so fast that even if you beat him to a position, he can explode and still get you. You can see the punch coming, and he's fast enough. He's still going to run right through you with it. Font is a good offensive fighter. He's durable. He's fairly smart. He's well schooled. But if Cody fights with any sort of controlled aggression and he's working with Mark Henry about his footwork, placing his shots, and being defensively hard to find, this fight, I think, gets really ugly for Rob Font. Because you look at those guys he beat, nobody he's beaten is really on Cody Garbrandt's level athletically or accomplishment-wise. Marlon Moraes is probably the closest, but, I mean, I wouldn't say peak Marlon is better than peak Cody.
I think Ricky Simone would take Marlon Moraes right now.
Yep.
So,
yeah, we're
bet,
still getting dog odds on Garbrandt.
My best bet for this fight, Cody Garbrandt. It's a double chance. Cody Garbrandt KO or decision plus 105. Not going to get the submission on Rob Font.
Imagine if he got a submission, Twitter would shut down.
Yeah, that would be
Cody
it. Right?
Garbrandt by flying armbar. Who picked that one?
Yeah, but okay, so how are we getting Cody Garbrandt at minus 102 still? I think that Cody is very easy to hate, and he's a little bit of a meathead, but he's so talented, and I'm coming to realize that you can't just bet against guys that you don't necessarily enjoy their personality, because a lot of guys in MMA, you're not going to enjoy their personality. It's the best
personality coming up. He had that book, and he gave the belt to the kid with cancer, and he walked around. He was dating Paige Van Zandt. Like, he really did. He was a decent guy, and then people were on his side with the TJ beef. People really did like.
I think that Dillashaw fight really brought the worst out in him.
100%.
I think, and then he never saw that before.
And bringing the worst out of him wouldn't have been as bad if he didn't lose both times, then get into that crazy war with Munoz and lose. So then he kind of became a little bit of a joke. Then I guess he gets divorced. And again, I don't know what he's doing with these poor pit bulls. But now he's got like all this craziness going on. But, he's now a 29-year-old man as opposed to a 26-year-old kid. And, he's part of the Beard Gang. And
I hope it's not too much craziness, because he needs to be 100% on point. He doesn't have much room for error as far as losses, especially not KO losses. You don't want to have to. No. You just don't. So I hope whatever craziness he's involved in is completely outside of his fight camp, because the UFC wants Cody Garbrandt to be a factor. They want him to be a name. They want him to be a factor in things. All he has to do is not mess it up. They're giving him this fight against this guy with a big win streak that he'll most likely knock out if he wins. That's going to catapult him into some kind of title opportunity. So he
Garbrandt by KO plus 210.
yeah.
That's the prop right there, because it's 5 rounds. Minus 102 if you want to play them straight. Plus 210 by knockout or decision, just in case Font's chin holds up. What'd you say? Plus 105, Guru? There's plenty of ways you could attack this one, but it makes me feel great knowing that on a lot of these fights, we really haven't consulted each other much this week to bring a more organic product here. And with Schwan hopping on, it makes me feel great that we did come to a consensus on a lot of these, and that it makes me feel comfortable how we came to there, and we did have a lot of fights that we want to touch, and then ones that we agreed that maybe we shouldn't touch.
We fleshed this card out like it was a pay-per-view.
That's the key about it. That's what separates y'all from a lot of guys, because you go on other shows, you hear the people, and it's always about who wins and who loses, and that's all well and good. But whether I'm right on a pick or wrong on a pick, I'm always try to be right on the process. I said this guy could lose this way. I picked him to win, but I told you he would lose. If he lost, he would lose this way. Understand the process ultimately is going to get you and your fans better picks than just picking a winner.
I really, really appreciate you saying that, because to me, I'll speak for me. That was the crux of why we created the show. It wasn't simply just a place to talk gambling or whatever. It was to really flesh out the process of why we're picking or simply why we're not picking. I think sometimes fleshing out why we've decided to pass a fight is just as important, if not more important, as to why we're picking a fight. So
I'd agree.
Thank you for saying that, because that is to me the core of what this Chronic Combat Conversations is supposed to be.
I love it. And listen, it's been quite a ride. I really felt like we needed to bring in, the heavy duty hands this week. Had a really great time breaking down the card. Schwan, did you have any last thoughts before we just give our final picks?
No. I just always, like I said, I'm honored that y'all bring me on and let me ramble, because I know, sometimes people got to sign in over, shut up, you're talking too much. So I appreciate y'all just letting me, have a platform to talk the sport. I like talking the sport, and sometimes when I talk a lot, I'm trying to kind of set y'all up to show your knowledge, because I know you're very knowledgeable, and I'm like, let me just give them a bunch of stuff, and then I'm going to let them go through it, and people can be like, hey, these guys know what they're talking about too, because y'all really do. I listen to your show. I don't listen to a lot of shows. I listen to like 2 MMA podcasts, and y'all's is definitely one of them.
Man, that's such an honor to hear that, man. Really appreciate it.
And, again, we're happy to have you back as our first, three-time guest. So
Triple C looking for a 3-peat.
Yeah, exactly. So we'd be happy to have you back
like
anytime.
Jordan in his prime.
You're free.
So, hey, thank you guys for making it this far if you did. And just for doing that, we're going to give you just a quick rundown of what we thought our best plays on this card were. For me, if you're looking at favorites and we're going to do a parlay, I'm going to take David Dvorak and I'm going to parlay him out with Bruno Silva.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
And then as far as underdogs go, I'm on Edmund Shabazian, maybe look at by knockout. I'm also on Carla Esparza, maybe by decision.
Yep, agreed there.
And even money plays, maybe still a slight underdog, Cody Garbrandt. I think that's where I'll leave it for this card.
Cody Garbrandt.
And for you, Guru, anything extra?
Cody Garbrandt, I like the KO or decision prop plus 105. Yeah, that I mean, it may be Court McGee, right? Maybe Court McGee.
Yes, maybe Court McGee. Let's see the weigh-ins for that one. That's weigh-in dependent.
Yeah, I got to see how Court McGee looks. Make sure he's comes in up to snuff. I really think that's everything. Carla Esparza, dog of the day. Let's get it, baby.
Can I ask you one question real quick?
Yeah. Sure.
How, like, I think a couple of events ago, a girl passed out and they took her off the card, but somebody was mentioning
Juliarenko.
Yeah, somebody's mentioning that a lot of times people pass out in the back and they still have them fight, and it's people who go on the gambling, the aspect of it. Do you feel like that's kind of some kind of malpractice? Because if they pass out, they can't be 100%. So you're making a decision, or you or other people are shifting gamblers to a certain fighter, and they're already compromised walking into the cage. If you passed out from dehydration, you can't take as many shots. You can't fight.
I just think it should be a level of negligence on the promoter or the commission to let them walk out if they're like passing out. Who did it the other week that they tried to last week? The guy who was also passing out.
Oh yeah. I can't remember his name. I know you're talking about, but it's just
passing out while standing.
You're putting them at risk, and to a certain extent, you might be manipulating the gambling because this person who who's maybe the dog, he made weight comfortably. This other dude struggling and passed out in the back twice.
That's damn true, man. So hey, Guru, everyone's so glad you made it this far.
Hopefully you made it this far. Thank you for listening to our UFC Vegas 27, UFC on ESPN Plus 46, UFC Fight Night 188 card. Hopefully you made it through this whole thing. If you're not already, please go like and subscribe our YouTube video, our YouTube channel at Chronic Combat Conversations. Go follow us on Instagram at Chronic Combat Conversations. Follow us on Twitter at Chronic Combat. Please check out our esteemed guest, Juan Humes, at Black Jordan Breen on Twitter. Please follow my amazing co-host, TB Scouting MMA, on Instagram, Twitter, Verdict, and Tapology. You can find me, _MMA Guru, on Instagram, Twitter, Verdict, and Tapology. Please make sure to listen to us. Look for us on Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. If you're not already subscribed and haven't left a 5-star review, please go do that now. Thank you guys and gals so much for tuning in, and we'll see you in 2 weeks for Rosenstruck versus Sakai.
Woo, vacation time.